All right, welcome to the Product Marketing Leader podcast. This is the first interview in a series of hopefully what I believe will be a great interview series podcast. What the world really needs is another podcast. So I figured I'm gonna leap in and do this. It's been a while since I've hosted a podcast, and I'm thrilled to have Jonathan Pipek here today, who is a product marketing consultant. He's been top 100 product marketing influencer for years. And that's no surprise to me because I met you and you were just so gracious with your time to talk. As a person who's recently laid off, I was considering maybe consulting, and you were one of the only people who just, you reached right back out and you were like, just so helpful and so willing to chat. And I have so much respect for that. So Jonathan, thank you. Thank you for being here. And please give an intro about you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Mike. Excited to be the first guest. Hopefully, don't do too terrible of a job. But
You're going to do great.
Excited to be here. Like you mentioned, I run Blue Manta Consulting. We're a product marketing agency. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. Before that, spent over a decade in product marketing, working across kind of a wide range of companies, everything from your Fortune 500 insurance, mid-market HR tech, cybersecurity startup, and a whole bunch of other startups and SMBs. Kind of about 3 years ago, I was like, look, love the startup space, but working on the same startup kind of feels like you're watching the same movie over and over and over. So I was like, why don't I start an agency? I'll still work with startups, and it'll still be the startup movie. But today it's a horror, tomorrow it's a comedy, the next day it's a rom-com. You get more variety. So that was the thought process. And almost 3 years later, it's been a wild ride, and really excited for it. And then the other thing, since we're filming this, today's December 11th, I think. I'm guessing this will come out next year at this point. The other news is, I guess it'll be old news by the time this launches, but I partnered with Pay to launch a new company. So we're launching that next week. It is a product marketing agency, a hiring agency, recruiting agency, specifically dedicated to hiring product marketers for early stage startups. So think seed to Series A. So pretty thrilled to do that. So soon we'll be doubled up on companies, but excited for the challenge.
That's very exciting. And you're going to have no shortage of people who are going to want to talk to you because the market is crazy, as
you can say that again.
discussed. So all right. So here's the thing. As a product marketer, first thing I did when I decided I was going to do a podcast is opened up some research to understand my audience or potential audience. And one of the things that surprised me in the survey is 100% of the people want it to be no more than 30 minutes. I've never seen that before. I figured it would be skewed, but it was 100%. It's crazy. So I'm going to do my best here to keep it under that time. So here's my first question for you, Jonathan, is what is your superpower as a product marketer?
That's a good question. I think I'd probably break this down into hard skills and soft skills. So from a hard skills perspective, what I really try to focus on is storytelling. So, and I know that's kind of a cliche answer, but I think it's true. I break things down kind of into things that are into kind of a way that's intuitive. I can turn pretty much anything into analogy. I'm a little bit notorious for food and relationship analogies. So I think that's definitely where I shine from a skills perspective. But what I've really honed is my soft skills. So I think over the last decade plus in product marketing, working across, kind of a wide range of company sizes, kind of the constant is that I've worked with executives or very senior leaders throughout my career. And I, obviously, as my career progressed, more and more closely worked with them, right? So I've really honed kind of my ability to work with C-suite, just to influence them, to kind of manage your leader or manage your leader's leader. Manage up is the term, I believe, right? So that's really kind of been critical. And kind of as I've shifted to consulting over the last 3+ years, that's really where it's coming in super handy because most of the work I do is with C-suite. So
awesome. Next question for you. Think back to when you were getting started in product marketing as a leader. And leader's a funny thing in product marketing, right? Like, I want to say that, and feel free to disagree with me. Like, one of the things I love about you is you're blunt and you're honest and you're straightforward. We don't have, not necessarily in a leadership position. You might be a leader without authority, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
Cross-functional. And so leadership is a funny thing. And even people who lead with authority, not always a good leader just because you have authority, right? So I'd love to hear your first time leader story. What lessons did you learn? What happened? If you can think back to that first fun leadership story or interesting leadership story.
So it's so funny that you mentioned leadership without authority, because that's literally what I was thinking as you said that. So it's funny how that works. Just quick caveat: this wasn't technically product marketing, but it was my first leadership role. So for context, I think I was 21 years old. I just graduated college, and I was in a rotational leadership program. And kind of 3 months into that, I was put in charge of running a team for the first time, and I was like way in over my head. I was managing a team of 40 people, wide range of ages, everything from I think the youngest person was 18 and the oldest was probably, I don't know, mid to late 40s. And I built pretty good relationships. I was able to be a decent leader for being 21 and not knowing anything, but I got, a lot of things wrong along the way. And I think one thing that I will never forget is exactly what you said, right? Leadership with authority. So there was one of the managers was just in that rotational program, my equivalent, but he wasn't in the rotational program. He had already, he was already a appointed manager, whatever. So he was kind of a self-described hard ass. And what he did is he basically bullied people, right? He used his authority to bully people into doing what he wanted versus building relationships. And so whenever any kind of conflict kind of came up, people would immediately the situation would immediately escalate because people didn't respect him and they knew that he didn't respect them. Hmm. So this kind of all came to a head because there was a guy on the team who was and this is, over a decade ago, so maybe I don't get all the details right, but he was probably I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", athletic dude, big guy. And he got in a literal shouting match with this manager, this bully manager. Everyone, all of us were okay, we were prepping that they were physically going to fight. They ended up finally separating, which was great. But the manager told him hey, you're done, go home. I don't want to see you the rest of the day. Get out of here. Don't come back. And the guy was just kind of stewing in a corner. And of course, the manager tells me, of all people, to go and escort him off the premises. And I'm I'm not security. I'm what is this? And I'll be honest, I was worried. One, I had no desire to fight this guy because I didn't care about what they were arguing about. I had no, I didn't have a horse in the race, whatever the expression is. Number one. Number two, I'm definitely not going to fight someone at work. You gotta be nuts to do that. So I was worried, but basically what I did is for more context, I'd already worked with this guy for months, right? 6 months. I'd already built a relationship with him. And his whole approach was he was very chill. He just wanted to be left alone. If you didn't leave him alone, it turned into kind of that escalation thing, right? That shouting match. So I kind of went up to him very calmly, wasn't aggressive at all. And I was look, I don't have any issues with you. I do think that going home would be a good, idea, just to kind of diffuse the situation. Do you mind kind of walking out with me? Just want to, again, diffuse the situation, kind of I focus in on the situation, not on him. I didn't act as a bully because that's just not my style. I had no, I had formal power, but I wasn't approaching him as hey, I'm your manager. I was hey, let's be reasonable. Let's be human. This is a crappy situation. Let's get out of it. And what was cool is that even though he was in a really he was really angry. I'd never those guys that are just always calm, and when they're not, they're just furious. That was him. But when I went over, he was pretty cool about it. And as we walked out, he was look, I know it's not your fault. We're cool. Don't worry about it. And I think for me, that moment immediately taught me exactly what you just said, right? The value of building relationships and using influence versus authority. And for me, it was amazing because it really set me up for success in my career, because I, like, from that moment on, I was always focused on, like, let me build a relationship rather than try to, like, amass power. I've worked with a lot of leaders that all they care about is like, oh, I want to manage more people, or I want to have a bigger organization, or I want to have more responsibilities. And for me, like, that moment really crystallized in my head, like, it doesn't matter that you, like, that guy, the bully manager had been around for years. And he, again, used his formal authority. And if he had tried to escort that guy out, they would have fought 100%.
Yeah.
But because I went in and I was like, look, we're already buddies. Like, I'm not approaching you from you did something wrong, let's get out of here. I'm saying, like, hey, situation's kind of screwed. Like, can we just, de-escalate, diffuse, etc. And because I had that relationship, it worked. And again, like, very extreme scenario. I can luckily say that's never, anything like that has never happened, in the rest of my career. Well, there was one shouting match, but other than that, nothing's happened. And I think, yeah, it's all been about building relationships, and it's a cliche for a reason, right? But it really is true.
Yeah, 100%. And it sounds like, you did something that's really important for leaders. You just remained calm.
I mean, look, like, me freaking out wasn't going to add anything to the situation.
It would have
right?
escalated him. And the
For
fact
sure.
that you were probably even keel and calm, and it made him start thinking in the back of his head, like, I'm being an idiot. It makes that person realize, like, okay, I need to take a breath.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, he complained about the other guy the entire time we were walking, because it was a long walk, unfortunately. But like, yeah, he knew that the other guy was being an idiot, that he wasn't responding in a mature way, or in a professional way, I should say, I guess, to your point. So yeah, I wasn't going to add any fuel to that fire. I was like, let me just, stay very, very calm, not add my opinion into it, because who gives a crap about my opinion? Let me just literally de-escalate the situation, prevent two guys from fighting. The other guy was not small either. And I was like, I'm not security here. Like, let me just, get the guy off the premises and call it a day. So
that's funny. All right. So next question. I can keep going with this one. This is very interesting. I hate having to stick to 30 minutes. I want to talk to you about this one, but I'm going to go to the next question. So as a hired gun, you're a consultant. How do you lead in a client company that hires you, or how can PMMs leading cross-functionally without authority lead? So now let's fast forward to today. What's your recommendation? How do you do it? And what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously the what we just talked about, building relationships, is important. I think there's a difference between consultant and in-house. So in-house, you have the luxury of time. So you can build relationships over 6 months, 12 months, a year, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. As a consultant, you basically have, like, maybe 30 seconds to 2 minutes, right, when you get introduced to someone to build that. So I think that's really tough, or that's a key difference, I should say. But influence and leading without authority, in my perspective, is the #1 skill set a product marketer should have. And to me, it really comes down to, like, a few different pieces. Like, #1 is understanding what the goals are. So I talk to so many product marketers that they know they have to launch a product, but they don't know what the company's goals are. So, like, why are we launching this product? Like, are we trying, as a company, are we trying to raise our next round of funding? Are we trying to get acquired? Are we trying to penetrate the market really quickly to like beat our competitors? Are we trying to maximize profit? Like, what is our goal here? If you don't know that, if you don't have that grounding kind of direction, like, of where are we headed as a company, then anything you do, like, you'll never be able to influence. You'll never be able to have authority, because you're going to be working in a very small kind of focused area versus, hey, here's where the ship is headed. Let me figure out how my contribution helps us get there. So I think that's kind of step one, is, like, just understanding, again, the goals. The other thing I see a lot is, or the other thing that I should say that really helps, is when product marketers make the shift from sharing information to sharing insight-driven recommendations. So kind of a classic example, and I'm sure you've seen this throughout your career as well, is when you have kind of earlier stage folks, so people who are just earlier in their career, they tend to share information. So, hey, this water bottle is blue. Congrats, that's information. But information forces, like, puts all the onus on the person you're sharing it with to make, to draw insight, to make recommendations, to build an action plan. So the shift that product marketers need to make is, it's kind of a two-level shift. One is from information to insight. So, hey, the water bottle's blue because it keeps because dark colors help it retain heat. Again, making this up off the top of my head. Okay, so now you're into kind of a little bit of insight territory, or at least like explanation. But the third piece is the insight-driven recommendation, right? So you take the insight and use that to drive a recommendation. So, hey, the water bottles, painted a dark color in order to retain heat. Why? Because the person puts coffee in here. This has water, by the way. I don't drink coffee, but in this hypothetical, we should do the same with ours. In order to maintain, in order to maximize heat retention. But by the way, we should go even darker and paint it, pitch black, right? Or Vanta black, I think, is the darkest color in the universe, right? Or one of them. So again, it's like shifting from sharing information to sharing insight-driven recommendations. The other thing I'll say is like, and I know you've experienced this for sure, is like C-suite has decision fatigue, right? Like they make, I don't know, dozens of decisions a day. It's just like being a parent, right? You're making so many decisions every single day. And if someone can just come in and say, hey, Mike, here's the situation, here's what we analyzed, and here's my recommendation based on the analysis. This is what we recommend you do. It's so much easier because now you just have to think through, okay, does that person's logic make sense? Yeah, it does. Great. Then you say, okay, sounds great. Or, oh, it doesn't make sense. Or you have this question, you ask that, you get that answered, and then you arrive to a conclusion. It cuts your meeting from an hour to like 15 minutes. So again, that shift is really important. And then the third one, and I think the one that's most critical and most overlooked, because I think good product marketers, like they do get invested in where the company's going, like what the goals are. They do kind of shift from sharing information to sharing, insight-driven recommendations. But I think the third part is really missed, which is as you're building those relationships, you need to learn about people, really build that trust and build that social capital. And I think the best way to do that is really to dig into the motivations of people, right? So I worked with a sales leader who all he cared about was recognition. Like he wanted to be recognized by C-suite, by other team members, by the board, by investors. Like that's all he cared about. That was a VP of sales I worked with. I worked with a CRO where he was motivated by power. He wanted to have a massive team. So when he started, he just managed a sales team. Over time, he took over support and customer success. Because again, his goal was power. I want to mass power. So figure out what who your key stakeholders are and what their goals are, right? What their motivations are as a power. Do they want to get promoted? Do they want to be recognized? Do they want time back in their schedule? Maybe they're busy parents or busy people who just want to do their hobbies, right? Sometimes they want to lead important initiatives, right? So figure out what their motivations are, what their goals are, what their pain points are, right? Like, hey, it's really a pain in the butt that they have to do X, Y, and Z. Can you help them do that better? And then also who their managers are, right? Because a lot of the times I think we focus on the person and we need to think about the kind of ecosystem is probably a bad word, but the ecosystem in which they operate. So who is their manager and their manager's manager? Like, what does that look like? If you're talking with a VP of sales and they report to the CRO and the CRO, she's known to be a hard ass and she always asks for A, B, and C. Well, great. Use that information to support your VP of sales and have facilitate that conversation, right? We talk about buyer enablement on the product marketing side, right? So how do we enable our buyers to kind of tell that story to the buying committee, right? For our product, we got to do the same thing internally and help those leaders that we're talking to sell it to their managers or to C-suite or to the board or to investors. So again, I think it comes down to building those relationships, getting that trust and social capital, combining that with understanding where the company's going and how you build or how you start shifting from sharing information to sharing insight-driven recommendations. So a bit of a long answer, but hopefully that covers it.
Great answer. That was a clinic. It was awesome. That's what I love about doing this kind of stuff. I'm learning here. So if I'm learning, I know it's going to be a great podcast. Not that I'm any smarter than anybody else. Been doing this a long time, so I got a lot of experience, but just great stuff. So last question before we go into what I'm calling the rapid fire round is I want you to share the most embarrassing true failure story of your career. And don't worry, no one's listening. It's just us.
Oh man, I have so many. That's a very long list. I know the cliche is you learn more from your failures than your successes, but it's so true. I really, really believe that. My most embarrassing one for me personally, I think was over a decade ago. This was back when I was in house. I was in charge of brochures for one of our clients, and so I printed 100,000 brochures, and every single one of them had a major misspelling, which changed the entire meaning of the word.
Oh no.
And the reason why is because I made the mistake of skipping the proofreading step just for sake of time because we were in a hurry.
Yeah.
And what happened is my manager, who was at this point a director at a Fortune 500, she took the blame. So like basically I screwed up and I told her about it and she said, okay, watch this. And she literally like closed her office door, called the client on speakerphone, like did some like chit chat. Hey, how's it going? Whatever. And then was like very casual and said, hey, we got this error on the brochure. I don't think it's a big deal, but just wanted to let you know. She took blame for it, saying it was her mistake. Client said, oh, no worries. Thanked her for letting them know. I didn't end result, I didn't get in trouble at all. I 100% triple checked everything from then on, especially at that job. I never, ever, ever let something through, not just without proofreading, but I would check it myself 2 or 3 times. I would ask a coworker. So yes, it was a great lesson on, you got to be thorough. You got to check, you got to the process is in place for a reason. But what was more important for me was that's what great leadership looks like. Right. Yeah. And for me, she was a 10 out of 10 manager for 3 to 4 years. I was there. I literally would have run through a brick wall for her. Last year she was there, not so great, but that's irrelevant for this story. But that really showed me when you're a leader and someone on your team makes a mistake, of course you can chew them out. Of course you can, tell them off for doing a bad job or whatever. But is that really the right way to handle it? Is that how they're going to learn? Probably not. And she didn't even sorry, I keep thinking of the word in Spanish. I can't think of it in English. Rezongar, when you tell someone oh, you did this wrong, and anyway, she didn't even tell me off. She just was like, hey, so what are you going to do next time to prevent this? What do you think happened this time? Okay, cool. And very calm. So again, really, really kind of set the foundation for how I wanted to be a leader. And I've never ever that I can remember at least have done that. Have not gone into it with a learning mindset and kind of been a little bit more positive than usual. So really set the foundation for me.
That's a great story. It's so important to when you have a leader that doesn't, and it's hard, man. You're doing things and that's a big mistake, right? Can be a big deal in some companies. I mean, I can think my old company would have fired someone for that.
Oh yeah, I thought I was going to get fired.
Yeah,
I mean, Mike, I was sweating bullets. My shirt was soaked. Thankfully, I walked in just the front, but the back of my shirt was literally it looked like I jumped into a pool. I thought I was going to be fired, and I was what was racing through my mind is how do I tell my wife? I think we were already married. If not, we were engaged, and I was I don't even know what to tell her. And then my parents, I was oh man, what do I do? How do I explain and how do I get a new job after this? I was so stressed.
Yeah, but it's true that, listen, at the end of the day, she did what she should do because maybe she should have proofread it too. You get, sure. When you're writing stuff, man, you get blindness to that. I've had plenty of times where somebody, my old partner in the software startup I was part of, he could pick, his eyes just honed in on any mistake and he would always find a mistake. And I'm son of a, I proofread this thing 10 times.
Oh yeah.
How did I miss that? So, she should have had an extra set of eyes. So kudos for her for not blaming you and stepping up and taking the blame because you're the leader, you're the boss. It's your responsibility, right?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, a coworker at that same job had a brochure that went through, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think it was 15 people. And nobody caught, to your point about you get blind to your own work, nobody caught, I think it said breath instead of breathe or breathe instead of breath, one of the two. So it was grammatically correct. It just didn't make sense with the sentence it was in or the phrase. Right. I think it was I'm sure this was again over a decade ago, but I assume it was take a breath or, take it easy, you can breathe easy or whatever, something like that. and nobody caught it. And it printed way more than 100,000. I think it was like, it could have been in the millions. I don't know. But it was for a client that's all over the world, all over the US, I should say. But
everywhere.
anyway,
That happens. Yeah. And
all the
that's,
time.
my favorite use of AI is actually for proofreading. I
Yeah.
use it all the time. I use it on everything I do. I write all my own stuff, and I've been guilty of using AI to generate things that I probably should have written myself, but I keep that to a very minimum. Usually it's around the time when, deadline is 5 minutes ago, but I write my own stuff, and I take it when I'm done. When I have a final proof, I bring it to, I love Perplexity is my favorite now. I just say, hey, I've got this proof. Please proofread it, only for grammar, spelling, readability, all the grammar things, and let me know what to change. Don't change anything for me, but let me know what to change. And then I go through it and I change everything that makes sense,
Right.
and sometimes I'll see things in there that I did, and I'll change those things. And I go through that process like 5-6 times before I
Oh,
finally
wow.
get it all clear, because each time it finds something new.
Yeah.
So it takes me more time to proofread it with AI than it probably should. That's a joke, right? AI is supposed to make things faster, but it does make it better. Like, I'm
Right.
pretty confident when I put something out now. But
Yeah. No, fair point.
all right, let's go into our rapid fire round. So here's the rules of the game. You're gonna give me like a super fast answer for everything, and we're gonna go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish rapid fire questions to wrap up. So, best PMM leader that you know of, doesn't have to be a specific person. It can be somebody that you've had experience with, or somebody that you've looked up to, and what made them great.
First one that comes to mind is Kevin Chan. If you don't know him, for anyone listening, the guy's fantastic. He's like genuinely beloved by his team. I personally really like him because he has no ego, fantastic listener. He's open to ideas. And the way he works with his team is like he explains and coaches his team really intentionally. Um, if y'all are familiar with like the T-shaped expertise, right? He's really big into that and empowering PMMs to kind of do that. So be really deep in one area and kind of high level in others. And yeah, he's just always, helping PMMs like grow confidence and in their own, efforts and their own skill set, and really big on elevating others. So genuinely a big fan of him.
Cool. Worst things you see PMMs do that hurt their careers.
Worst thing to do in their careers. They do a terrible job marketing themselves. So like they're heads down. They're like, oh, I'm going to do the work, but they don't communicate it. It's literally the equivalent of, it's like the human equivalent of a SaaS company that builds a great product but doesn't invest in marketing. It's like, who cares? Nobody knows, right? It's not going to sell. It's the same thing with product marketers in their careers.
And you nailed something that I did. I was guilty of that.
It happens. It's really, really common.
Yeah. And which is a shock. If you knew me, 20 years I spent branding myself. I was always blogging and doing videos and doing crazy things on social. So that was a real fail for me. Okay. So rapid fire, back to rapid fire. Worst thing you see PMM leaders do.
Leaders. So the big one, and I actually literally just, this is something that comes up a lot with, so I do a lot of mentorship, and many of them, not all of them, but many of them have leaders that are product marketers. And the big thing that they miss is they don't define product marketing and then fiercely advocate for it at their company. So like, look, we all know that product marketing is different depending on the company, right? Like it varies. You read a job description here, it's completely different than this one, so on and so forth. And so your job as a product marketing leader is to literally define what is it that your team does, what are your goals, how do those goals ladder up to company goals, and how do you work with other teams? And to do that, you got to establish a product marketing team charter. You have to share it with the rest of the organization. You constantly promote it, advocate for it, etc. And if you're not doing that, you're just not a good product marketing leader. Like you're literally setting up your team to fail, because they're going to end up doing low impact work like one pagers, rather than kind of influencing the major decisions as like, hey, should the company go up market, or do we need to increase pricing? So again, I think it's really like defining and advocating, really fiercely advocating for what product marketing does and doesn't do, and how it does it.
Brilliant. Couldn't agree more. Most important thing aspiring leaders in product marketing can do right now to get better.
I think it all comes back to soft skills. So honing emotional intelligence, relationship building, empathy skill set. It's going to help them make an impact, get promoted faster. And in my experience, the best way of doing this is really reading like a combination of emotional intelligence books, or sorry, it's doing a combination of one, reading, emotional intelligence books, two, observing leaders at your company and see kind of how they do it. And then three, just, getting coaching.
Right on. And that's a good lead into our last rapid fire questions. Favorite marketing or leadership book? Maybe it's an emotional intelligence book.
So it is actually. So I would recommend reading anything that's written by Marshall Goldsmith. So for folks that aren't familiar that are listening to this, Marshall Goldsmith is considered probably the best executive coach in the world. So for context, what he does is he literally will go to a Fortune 500 CEO and say, hey, if I help you hit these targets, whatever the company's targets are, in a year, by coaching you, if I hit it, I'm going to charge you $1 million. If I don't hit it, coaching is free for a year. So, and again, I heard this, years ago, so maybe the numbers have changed, but that's kind of the premise. So again, like absolutely fantastic executive coach. So I'd really recommend, specifically, I think, and don't quote me on these titles, but I think one of them is called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Again, Marshall Goldsmith. And then the other one is about triggers. It's, I don't remember the full title, but it's like triggers, becoming the person you want to be or something like that. There's probably more to the title, but that's kind of high level what it is. Yeah, highly recommend anything by Marshall Goldsmith, especially if you're a leader. He has, again, I don't remember the exact questions, but he has like 6 questions you should ask your team every quarter. Really, really strongly believe in like his leadership approach. I think it's a really good foundation.
Love it. Great. Thank you so much for all of this. I think we're just about at 30 minutes. So Jonathan, thank you for being here. Thank you for being the first guest. And I'm going to have you on again, of course. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and tease what you've got coming again. If you have if you're doing anything to kind of collect leads or get people on a waiting list or anything.
Yeah. Thanks again so much for having me. Appreciate it. Best way to follow me or kind of keep in touch is LinkedIn. So definitely recommend that. And then, yeah, we're launching, Elin and I are launching this new company, middle of December. So probably next week. It's a recruiting agency for early stage startups. So we're really trying to partner with VCs and early stage startups to place product marketers. So if you are a VC, you are an early stage startup, and you're looking for product marketing full-time hires, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody. If you're watching, I told you nobody's going to be listening to the embarrassing story. They'll all leave before
They'll skip that. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for watching.